So firstly, I just want to say because I was in Sydney recently and I went to Yagi's apartment and single launch which you opened like you were one of the support acts for, and I that was the first time I'd seen you and your band, and the energy that you guys brought and the way that the audience interacted with you guys was incredible. So how are you feeling after that performance?
Yeah, I was feeling pretty good. I thought it wasn't like musically our best performance. We tried something a little different where we had the whole show pre-planned. So pretty much I produced 30 minutes worth of backing tracks and I edited like little inputs. So we have like the back of the house where there's like a little AI voice telling us when a song's coming on or what each person needs to be doing, and then the front of the house is what you were hearing, which were like all the backing tracks and stuff. The problem is one of the boys, because we've all got wide in-ears, because if anyone's a musician, they know that wireless in-ears are so expensive. Um, but one of the boys, his wide in-ears stopped working, so he wasn't getting any of the inputs or anything
Oh, no.
throughout the whole gig, and he didn't mention it to anyone. So that's why, like, sometimes when he's performing, I'm like, why is he out of time? Like, we've done this so many times and it's been perfect. Why is he like a bit out of time? Like, it was annoying me throughout the whole gig. And then afterwards, I was like, man, what was that? He's like, dude, I had no input that entire time. I was just going off muscle memory from all the times we've been rehearsing, like the many hours we've been rehearsing. I was like, okay, fair enough. But other than that, I still think we did really well. We're just very hard on ourselves. And that's just because we always want to give the crowd the best performance that we can. I think for me, especially when it comes to producing music, I always produce in with the foresight that this will be played live. And I'm like, how would a crowd react to this when I'm playing it live? Are they going to be bored? Are they just going to be standing around and, you know, moving left, swaying left and right, or are they gonna be like really interactive, you know? And and that's why I think you see with when I like when we I perform the music that I produced, you see that it's always like like something where I hope that it's so energetic that the crowd has to start moving, like it's a bit infectious, you know?
Yeah, and I definitely picked up that vibe as well. Because just being in the audience and like that was the first time that I had seen you guys, so I didn't know like your lyrics and stuff. But just seeing people in the audience that did know your lyrics and just seeing them have like the best time was incredible. And yeah, you couldn't even tell that you had that technical issues. That just shows that you guys handled it professionally. And yeah, you're saying that you're a bit hard on yourself, but I guess yeah, being in the audience, you couldn't even tell. So
Yeah, no, that's really nice of you.
yeah,
But no,
sorry, go.
no, I had a really fun time though. Yagi was awesome, and Ignacio, who played before me, he was super talented. I just recently got the he played a cover of "Good Luck Babe" by Chapel Roan, and he has this awesome backing track that he had for it. And I messaged him like, "Hey man, could you send me that? Just so like one day I want to play it as a cover, I can do it." So
Yeah, I unfortunately missed the other open night because I got stuck in that line for the Halloween party was on the same night, and they didn't tell me to
yeah,
also go through. So I got stuck in the other line. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of people here for Yaki, but yeah, wrong line.
yeah. I that annoyed me so much. I went outside and was telling the security guards. I was like, you guys should have had signs clearly specifying which line is for who. And they didn't have like eventually they started putting security going through the line saying, "Hey, can you go inside for if you're part of this show, go inside." But that was a bit stressful leading up to when we were going on because I knew people were going to get confused. So.
Yeah, well, I thought I missed like a dress up memo because I was like, am I like underdressed for this gig or?
Yeah, it didn't help. It was like around Halloween too. So
Yes. But yeah, congrats on releasing your debut EP, Mine's Mr. Beach. How does it feel to have it out there and what's the reaction been like so far?
I feels great. That was a whirlwind of an EP, just getting it all finished because it's the first time I've ever had like a body of work that I've put out there that I've been like quite happy about. But Mimes Mr. Beach, the track specifically. So initially, The Way You Stand, that was going to be like the last song of the EP, and it was going to be a six EP, like track or a six track EP. And I was like, you know what? I just don't think The Way You Stand can be what the EP should be titled. Like it's an awesome song, but I was like, just the name. I've been looking at all these, new EPs coming out. Like the last dinner party that they released an EP with like an abstract name, and I was like, oh, I'm probably gonna have something similar. So, I went through a variety of names. Mimes Mr. Beach or Mimes Mourn the Beach. I was like, oh, that doesn't really work. And then yeah, I ended up landing on Mimes Mr. Beach, and this was probably October 1st when I realized, oh, I need this abstract name, and the EP was going to come out on October 24th. So I was like, okay, let's call it that. And then in the same moment, I realized, oh, actually need a track called Mimes Mr. Beach. So I started thinking of ideas. The next day, I was at university in my federal constitution class. And while my teacher was talking about I don't know what external affairs power in the Australian Constitution, I started having the melody, haven't seen you in a little while, don't you know that mimes Mr. Beach? And I was like, oh, that's a cool melody. I should go home and write that. So my guitarist Ben, he was always going to come over because I was going to get him to put a solo of another track that I produced, which is one that I hope to get out next year. And I was like to him, I was like, hey man, we're not going to be doing that. We're going to be producing a whole new song together. These are the chords, this is the layout I've got. You need to help me flesh this out. And he sat with me. He wrote down like he did that Spanish guitar bit on the acoustic. He helped with the transition from one key to the next because it's two separate keys between the verse and the chorus. Um, and then and then pretty much he left, and then that night I spent like 8 hours just producing it straight, just different drums, different snares. And then the next day I sang it all in one go. I think spent about 8 hours, got all the vocals down, edited a little bit more, got it mixed within a day, and then sent it to a good friend of mine called Talia Rose to get it mastered. And by October 7th, it was completely done, and I added it to the EP, and I had the full EP done by then. But the reaction's been great. Yeah, a lot of people have been saying they've been loving the track. They've been loving the way you stand. And they've said that from start to finish, the energy, it's the tracks are perfectly placed in regards to the moods that people are feeling, where the start is just full energy, and then it kind of simmers down for a little bit, and then it builds a bit at the end with Tragedy Delight, which is this big production work. So
Yeah, and sometimes the most spur of the moment decisions are like the best ones. As you said, you didn't plan for Mimes Mr. Beach to be like the opener, but obviously it's worked great. And I love that on your Spotify, you've still got like both title tracks as like the EPs. So you've got the Mimes Mr. Beach, but then you've also got the other EP of the other song as the main as well.
yeah. And that one I've got my sister as the cover photo, which I thought it was a cool photo. So yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is a cool photo, yes. But I'm curious about your project name, Uncle Bobby, because I think I just like wrongly assumed that your name was Bobby, but you're Liam. So tell me more about how Uncle Bobby came about.
Yeah. So the whole gist of that was, um, I mean, a lot of people always say, "Oh, did that come from like Bob's your uncle?" Because of the whole like the Bobby uncle, I guess, run of words thing, But it didn't actually come from Bob's your uncle. I found out about that a year after I made the name, which I was like, "Oh, did you get that from Bob's your uncle?" I was like, "Oh, maybe subconsciously I did." But the way it came about was when I was 18 or 19, and I was in my room. And a friend of mine called me. He's like, hey, man, I want to create a clothing business, as every 18, 19-year-old surfer kid does. They're always wanting to create like some surf clothing business. And I was talking to him for a bit, and I was like to him, I was like, "Oh, why don't we do or why don't you use the name Bobby Uncle? Because that just came up in my head." I was like, "You can make it like a bit of a more, not fully surfer, but more like, stylistic, you know." And he thought about it. He was like, nah." I was like, let's do another one." I was like, "Oh, okay." But that name never left my head. I was like, "Oh, I think that's a really cool name." And then, when I started producing music, I remembered that name and I was like, "Oh yeah, I think I'm going to use that for my name for all my artwork or all my music." So.
Yeah, I love it. And yeah, going back to Mimes Mr. Beach, I love the whole concept because you recently gave us like a track by track rundown, and thank you by the way, for that rundown of your EP. But you kind of described like feeling like a mime represents you not leaving the house and missing like the simple things like the beach. So tell me more about that and how that fits into you as an artist.
Yeah. So I think, as I was saying, I do. I'm doing law at uni, which takes up a lot of time. I work on Fridays, which is fully indoors. And then when I'm not working, I'm producing in my room, which is whether it's music or singing. And then if it's nighttime, I'm going to rehearsals. So I guess a lot of the time I don't have like the joys of leaving the house and going to the beach or going out like outside for runs. If I'm going to the gym, it will be at like 9:30 p.m. or 10 p.m. at night. Um, and if I'm seeing friends, it will be nighttime activities. So I think in that sense, I was like, okay, well, you know, similar to a mime, they've got the white makeup. For me, it's the pale skin. They don't get to enjoy stuff like the beach, because if they go to the beach and they go into the water, their makeup runs off. And similar to a mime, they express themselves not through words but through actions or through other means. I think I was trying to compare myself to that, where I like to express myself through music instead of just like talking about how I feel, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely makes
that's
sense.
so that's how I came up with the whole Mimes Mr. Beach concept. So yeah.
Yeah, and the film clip for it is so cool. It looks like it would have been incredibly fun to film. So what are some highlights for you when making that?
Yeah, no, that was awesome. I'd looked on the internet to hire a mime in Sydney, and there was a couple, but all of them were like $400-500 per hour. And I was like, "Oh my Lord, look, I don't have a budget for that. That's a lot of money." And I wanted, like, if we are gonna film, I knew it was gonna take a few hours, so I hit up my mate who went to NIDA. He's super talented, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I'll wear some makeup. I'll put some black, some black eyeliner, go around the noses and stuff. I'll hire out a mime costume and I'll do it for you." And he gave me a much cheaper rate. I also got another friend from high school who's a great photographer and videographer, and he came down and we went down to my local beach at like 5:30 a.m. in the morning. Daylight savings had hit by that time, so we had daylight, and we just started filming. And my high school mate, he already made the storyboard and what shots he needed beforehand, and it just ended up being quite perfect. And a really essential element to it um, cab colorway. So we're using Saint James Infirmary Blues, which is a cab colorway song, which was used in a bunch of Betty Black. It was Betty Black. Those
But
old cartoons.
oh yeah.
Betty Boo. Yeah, all the Betty Boo old animations in like the 1920s. And I'm a massive fan of Cab Calloway. Like, I think he's so talented. I think he was one of the very first rock stars in the US. Um, and he had a very particular way of dancing, where he pretty much bent over and he walked in a weird, in this really weird zombic fashion. Um, I can't do that because I've got my hamstrings don't stretch far enough to do that. But my mate did it perfectly. The one that dressed as a mime, he did it perfectly, and you see him dancing like that in the film, and that's why for half of the film, or majority of the film, it's in black and white, and you've got this mime that's mimicking, the cab colorways, you know, artistic dance, and we've got St. James Infirmary Blues playing in the background, and and ultimately it ended up being exactly what I wanted, which was a combination of that 1920s, slapstick comedy with, that cool 1940s dance with eventually coming to Mimes Mr. Beach track to introduce the EP.
Yeah, and good that your friend came through and saved you of the cost of a mime. Like, I didn't realize they were $400. Obviously, I'm in the wrong industry because, like, $400 and you don't even have to talk. Like, I should become a mime, right?
Yeah, 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 genuinely. I don't even know if you even really have to do the whole, all that. Like, I'm sure it wouldn't take long to figure out, but yeah, they're so expensive. So,
Well, I didn't even realize how expensive they'll be, but there you go.
yeah.
Yeah, and we let people on Instagram send through some questions as well. And someone said that they're really loving coffee and would love to know what inspired that particular song.
Coffee. Yeah. So that was about this person I was seeing in December last year, and I first wrote the chorus. Yeah, I first wrote the chorus when we were seeing each other, and I couldn't get her out of my head. And I was like, oh, I need coffee at the moment just to get a thought of you out my head. And I was like, at the time, I was studying for an exam, and I just couldn't get her out of my head. And that melody just like kicked in. And I quickly went to my phone. I recorded it. I remember I even listened to the old voice recording of it back in, like, I think it was November 8th of 2023, and I had the whole song planned out. Just the first singing, I had the verses, I had the chorus, but they were just the melodies at the time. Um, and then in December we eventually stopped seeing each other, and that's when I wrote the verses. And the verses are a lot more cynical, a lot more, I guess, uh, vindictive, if that makes sense. 2 feet in kerosene, and you're lighting up on. Is it lighting up over jealousy? Oh my God, I forgot my lyrics. Yeah, yeah, I think it's two feet in kerosene, and you're lighting up over jealousy tonight. Yeah, I'm gonna say that is it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was, that was after we'd stopped seeing each other, and there was a bit of, on her end, I think there was a bit of jealousy, where she came to a gig of mine, and yeah, so I ended up writing that in December, and then I think I had it done by about February, March, but I wanted to have some other songs finished before then, and I wanted to build up a PR campaign leading up to it. And that song ended up doing really well. It got a Rolling Stone feature. It got put, iHeartRadio played it. It gets played across Woolworths. It got spins on Triple J. It was definitely my most commercially successful song for sure.
Yeah, amazing. Especially getting it on like Triple J and do you say Woolworths as well? Because that's a huge flex.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It got on Woolworths radio. So, I had friends for months, and I think even now sending me videos of them in Woolworths getting groceries, and my song just playing in the background, which was so awesome. So
Mate, 'cause I can just imagine like people buying, like going to Woolworths to like buy their coffee and just hearing coffee come on the radio.
yeah, yeah, it was so good. I loved it. That was such an awesome moment when that happened. I was on top of the world. So
Yeah, amazing. And we're at the end of the year now. So what are your plans for next year in terms of like any live shows you want to plug or any music you're working on?
yeah, I've got a show on the 23rd of November, where I'm opening for two Wollongong bands, Cheeky Leash and Slim Jims, at Factory Theatre in Marrickville. And then I'm doing a 2 hour set, which is just purely me at Ramblin' Rascals on December 6th, which will be awesome. And then I'm not too sure about gigs for next year, but I have a lot of unreleased music that is I think a league above everything that I've released now. Um, just my producing has gotten better. I always tell people this. I don't really care if my music's getting better as long as my skills, like my actual production skills, are getting better. And now I'm really seeing that pay off with these new tracks. And I'm now in the thought of whether I release an album next year or whether I keep it as an EP. I'm not too sure, but I definitely have about 4 songs right now, which have been really well produced. One of them I even got vocal produced by Simon Cohen from Studio 301, and he helped me produce the vocals for the track, and it's sounding bloody awesome. So.
Amazing. Well, we're very excited to hear it. And that's pretty much all my questions. But did you have any other comments that you wanted people to know about this particular EP or about your Bobby Uncle project at all?
Um, just keep listening. Uh, Come to the shows. I think you're going to have an awesome time if you come to any of our shows. We always make sure that people have a good time, and we hear time and time again that the night that people come to our shows, whether they go to another party afterwards, another event, whether they go to a club, they always say the highlight of their night was watching us perform. So if you're in Sydney, come watch us perform this year. Otherwise, listen to the music, stick around for next year because I can see us doing pretty well next year with the music that we've got coming out. So.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for your time. It was great to get to know you more and hear, what you're working on.
No, thank you so much, Brooke, for interviewing me, and thank you to Futuremag for giving me the opportunity to come on and talk about my music.
Yeah, no worries at all. Well, yeah, thanks again. Enjoy your day and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank
Bye.
you.
No
See
worries.
ya.